Hi guys, how are you? And welcome back to this channel. So today I wanted to do a video that's a little bit different, and I wanted to paraphrase a quote that came through quite recently in the last few days. So I'm going to pop on my screen share right here. And I call this the machine theory, matrix machine theory, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, basically, so I just tried to transcribe something that came through. I had a session a few days ago with this person, and we were kind of bouncing perspectives back and forth behind, what's really going on. So I guess it's a continuation from the soul trap or no soul trap video that I had just put out. But basically, it's going to be about his perspective, which I found very, very interesting. And so I transcribed the part, I think it was like a good 5, 6, 7 minutes or so. I tried to transcribe it to the best that I could. So I'm just going to go ahead and quote and paraphrase this entire conversation because I thought this perspective was so interesting. And I think I find it interesting, more people could benefit from it. And I think it's definitely worth sharing. So we kind of got talking about, this entire where are we really and what's really controlling us, what's really around us. So I'm going to say what my part is when I speak, and I'm going to say what his part is when he talks. But basically, I got started with, like I was saying, there's this cage-like structure around us, and by cage-like structure, I kind of see that more as like this ethereal thing. Every time I kind of tap into that, it looks a bit like white to me. So really like this white ethereal thing, which will go into the meaning of the ether after this quote as well, by the way, after this conversation. And I keep feeling, and I keep coming back to the concept over and over again, that something went wrong in the original Atlantis. And by original, I mean we're still in that Atlantis. It's just kind of like this computer program that has this bug or error in it. And so we keep getting looped over and over again into these different realities, or rather like similar realities, the same realities, call them reincarnations on this earth realm or whatever. But I kind of feel there's this matrix that we're in right now, which most of our consciousness is in. And I also feel there's something, for lack of a better word, something like empty space or something around it. Maybe there are beings in it, like beings outside of this matrix who already escaped somehow, or who are able to escape, help us escape. But I also think we don't necessarily have to rely on them. I do want to say that too, because I know some people out there really rely on them. They're like, oh yeah, these higher vibrational beings outside of the matrix who we have to call upon, all that. No, I don't think that at all. And I also think there's a reason we're here. There's a reason we're able to make the most out of this lifetime, or also other lifetimes that we had or whatever. And we're able to create our own lives, the lives we desire, to manifest whatever we want. Manifest, by the way, comes from mani, hands, meaning creating with your own hands. And perhaps also escape the matrix in your flesh body so that you don't necessarily have to wait until after death. So that's a bit of a continuation from the perspective that I shared in the previous video. And like I already said, I feel we're just constantly being distracted from all of this. Just the amount it took for me to actually sit down and being able to make this video, it's like there's constant noise around us. There's constant distractions being thrown at us. And it's not necessarily because I'm in this big city where you have it like that. I also feel that whenever I go somewhere else, like in the countryside, whatever, there's always something that's trying to distract. We're being constantly bombarded with whatever's. We're having our cell phone, all of that energy and frequency around us that's probably trying to get to us. So there's so much that goes on. We're being put constantly in these loops over and over again. And we're also being confused because of these loops. So by loops, I mean, sure, we do experience these loops in our reality, in our life right now, but it's more so like that reincarnation loop over and over again, which some people call the recycling trap or recycling machine. A bit like, so I kind of see that a bit like a system error in a computer program. And that, you know, possibly this error has to be fixed also in order to get out of that, in addition to all the other keys that are somewhere, somehow, and all the other ways out, which I was talking about the Vatican having one of those keys, and also other people, other families having those keys. And so I think it's just not a one-off answer. I feel there's different ways to approach it. I don't think you have to die to experience it. I think when people come together as a group and dissect through these concepts as a group, the stronger you can also find a way out together. So the more people awaken from these psyops, the better. I think it's overall just a group effort. And there may be individuals pivoting ahead, or individuals who are kind of able to get through that mind wipe that they try to put us under, or kind of individuals who are able to wake up earlier, of course, but the rest still has to merge together with those. So overall, I do think it's just a group effort over and over again. And so then the person I was talking to, who's a guy, he was saying, so this is basically his entire quote or paraphrase. I was going to go into the AI thing. People talk about AI way before it was even what we have now. I think it's mostly technological. And by technological, I mean aliens, demons, etc. So I'm going to intersect and say, I'm going to tell you what I agree with and everything after I paraphrase this entire thing. He goes on, the terminology does not mean much to me because it's all the same thing. Like, you have good beings and evil ones. I think honestly, with all this talk about UFOs, it's been going on forever. I think it's technological, like the memory wiping, the reincarnation. I think it's an actual technology like this computer. And I think it's a legit technology that is advanced enough that it can appear into subtler forms of existence, like densities, astral energy, and stuff like that. It's definitely a machine, though. Like, when I think about AI is reaching more than computers and electronics. I think it's just a very complicated form of machinery that is actually able to bend reality in a way. A lot of it could be almost Star Trek tier stuff. It's probably aliens. It's probably just some kind of farming, manipulation, genetics stuff. And all this stuff that we have come to know as magic, synchronicity, all of that, it's probably from a technological standpoint. Because you have to remember all the way back when nobody knew about this. Back in the days, an iPhone would have been considered magic. So let's just go back like a few hundred years ago. Showing someone on a screen, being able to talk to someone all across the world, they would think it's an artifact. And now we were able to discover this thing. If we were able to discover this thing, we could touch it and it would teleport us. It's magic. But then a couple of centuries down the line, we figure out how it works, and it's probably tech. So I think there's no distinction between magic and fantasy universes and magic and technology. I think it's one thing. I think we just focus on it and express it differently. I think the government probably knows exactly what it is. I don't know if the moon is fake or what's going on with that, but I know there's some sort of technology that can do stuff to your cellular body. I know that those things are telepathic. I know they can screw with your memories. I know all of that. So to put two and two together, it's some kind of technology thing. And there are probably positive forces in place that are trying to prevent or fight that, but they can't go about in an outright manner or conflict. So I think when people die, the ones that get recycled, there's some type of technology in place that does it. It's kind of a farming thing. It's kind of all over the place, but I think there's a technology that does it. And like with everything, and like with tech, everything can be broken or repurposed. So when that happens, or how that happens, all depends on how many people realize it. And you know, the more people realize it, the more attention is on it, and the more reality shifts. That's just how it works. That's how energy works, I think, anyway. That's when it will, like, any real chance to do anything about it will take place. Because individually, basically, if these things are negative entities or the negative ones messing with you, I guess the only thing you can do is to be as positive as you can, or to make your energy field so that they don't want to mess with you, or it will cause them to mess with it. But eventually, like, you know, people who are in a good mood or very happy, they can see someone is sad, but they're not part of that world per se. And then I kind of intersected. I was like, oh yeah, they are a part of it, but it's almost like they're rejected by it. So I was kind of thinking about, you know, when people, and I think we all know these kind of people in our lives, like people who are just constantly pulling things down. You know, I hung out with a lot of those people back when I was actually probably like early teens or whatever. I had this job in the food industry, and you kind of do experience some of the most miserable people in those type of jobs. And there was this one person who was so miserable in her job, and she was basically always in a bad mood. And even back then, I realized that just hanging around this person was really doing something to me, and for lack of a better word, my vibration, right? And I was like, you know, I don't want to hang around this person anymore. I want to hang out with a coworker that's actually very positive. So it's almost like you really get rejected by those people who are always like in this negative energy, in this negative field. So I actually completely agree with that statement that he made. And so it's like you're really turned off by it. Okay. And so he goes on saying, yeah, so I think it's like that, but on a frequency so powerful that it's almost on a physical level. You know, people who get so angry that their whole life changes, like they do something. So it's something like that. If someone feels something so positively and they're able to maintain it, that's the key word, maintain. I think that's where the chances come from. If a sudden change in your emotional states, and emotions are what manipulate everything. I think emotions are the key. You know how they say the mind is higher than the, well, I guess he meant emotional. So I'm just trying to read my notes here. I think the heart is the key. They are always after your emotions. Emotions are what is important. And if you can feel something positive and keep it there, or at least maintain it, that's where the changes happen. Because if you feel a burst of euphoria, but then you're back to baseline, you have to just change your baseline subtly. And that's when you start noticing positive changes in your life. And how you do that really depends. I mean, everybody's different. I think that's how I'm going to approach it, because I am in the process of doing it, and then we will see where it goes. Because as you walk on that road, that's when stuff starts coming to you. So you can't really predict where it's going to go. And you can only know that, like, if you're trying to do stuff positively, those things are going to attract or expect interferences, because those things are trying to drag at you any chance they get. Okay, and then I was saying, you know, you can actually turn your disease around with the power of your mind. So it's kind of like getting back to, I think the mind's also important, not just the emotions, but I do understand the point he's making. So it makes a lot of sense what you're saying with the scalar waves and tech they're using. I personally think the Schumann Resonance, which is really pushed by the New Age movement right now, right? The Schumann Resonance meaning the earth or you are high vibrational when it's like really high or whatever. The Schumann resonance is in reality just similar to EMF poisoning, and people who are experiencing those poisoning symptoms, such as the headaches, whatever else you experience, like feeling sluggish, they're experiencing that from the device they're using that they use for the Schumann resonance. Somehow they're kind of controlling the Schumann resonance. And I made a short movie on this channel too, so look at my shorts for that. It was like a few months ago. So you're going to feel hungover, you're going to feel headaches, you're going to feel all of that. Same with the technology they're using, same with the weather. So I noticed there's been huge weather changes over these past few years specifically. I noticed there's been just huge climate changes in certain countries that were used to be very cold. Now all of a sudden they're like super hot. And especially here where I am, you know, we're experiencing a weird summer again over the past few years. So they're definitely messing with the weather. It makes a lot of sense. Okay, and then he's saying people often try to draw the distinction that tech is tech and it's completely different from magic. Magic is, you know, what do they mean by magic? Conjuring up a flame in your hand or floating in air. So that's like what we usually think magic is. And I was saying, well, magic is an illusion of the mind. And all these illusionists, they just work with the mind illusion. Because I personally actually have a friend who I would consider a magician or like an illusionist. Like he's more of an acquaintance, so I don't ask him about all his tricks. But I know for sure that a lot of tricks that he has, it's just a mind illusion somehow. It's kind of like they distract you for one blink of a second or a blink of an eye, and then the magic happens. Okay, and he goes on saying, and if a creature is able to, let's just say, demons or aliens or whatever this creature is, if a creature has a body and everything, like you and me, if it can control your mind somehow telepathically, somehow with a device, let's just say like a cell phone type device, who is to say it can't make you feel certain things, like feel like you're burning or make you feel like you're out of your body? It looks like it's shape-shifting, but it's actually just making it seem like it is something else. And so that was really interesting, because when you listen to all these channelers, you know, all these new age channelers, they're like, oh, and this alien looked like this and like that. It's basically just like projections of a certain entity, right? Like they're using tricks on the mind and everything in the astral. And is it a device? It could very well be. So he goes on saying, I'm thinking it's the technology all the way through. And technology is mind-centric, egocentric in its nature. I found this sentence very interesting because it explains a lot. It tries to control everything, it tries to calculate everything, and it tries to optimize everything. It's not coming from a heart center. Very different, basically. And I feel these things are using it to control pretty much everything. So the entities. So the only way to counter it is, and then I said, to shut down the computer. That was like my initial instinct. And he was like, yeah, but from our standpoint, it's the heart. So the way to counter all of this technology is with the heart. Like you have your emotions, like you take back that power. They can keep trying, but they can't outright control you. I am trying to avoid all the talks and projects about it. So, you know, you see all these talks online about Project Bluebeam or whatever, because all of that seems like scare tactic. Let's look at it this way. If they already control, which they do, so if they already control, you know, everything that they're saying, what would be the point in disclosure, announcing themselves? They already have everything in their grip. The only reason they want to announce themselves with all these alien disclosures and whatever, in my opinion, would be for an ego thing. Like if you can control everything behind the scenes, you are already won. So whenever information like aliens, etc., slips out, I try to not pay attention to it, as it tends to ruin my mood. And there's nothing I can really do about it. A, and B, why would you let it go out? All variants of the alien agenda, a distraction tactic, a scare tactic, and meant to feel all these negative emotions. And that's when they can control you even more. And then I was saying, you know, it's disinformation, is trying to confuse you even more. And he went on saying, them glitching out, it's technology. So we kind of had like a few moments where we were talking about something else and we came back to this. Them glitching out, it's technology. Technology can be broken or destroyed. It's just that it's so advanced and so well hidden, it seems impossible, but it's just trickery. And then so we went on saying, we were kind of coming, oh yeah, we went on going further into the simulation theory and everything. And also just like robotoids and clones in real life. So I kind of want to have a different video on AI in our lives. So I also think, you know, it's mind illusion, but there could also be glitches in this system. And that's what we may be seeing right now. You know, when people are talking about the birds in the sky, that some of them kind of look like pixelated whatevers, all of that could be glitches in the system, in addition to other glitches that are obviously happening. So this was a conversation with someone who's, I mean, mind you, he's in his early 20s. So I think this is a very good representation of the younger generation. Just think about how advanced we could be if we weren't constantly distracted by every single agenda that they're trying to push on us. You know, like the entire separation agenda, distractions such as 2020 and on, and also just distractions in our personal lives. You know, how all these people in your life, like I call them the AI people, whatever, how they try to really tear it apart or put you down or just kind of put you in this bad mood or distract you so much that you're barely really able to focus on a task or, you know, record a video or do whatever it is that you have to do. So I feel there's just so much to talk about, but I briefly wanted to go into the definition of ether because ether kind of came to me recently, and I was like, you know, what is the concept of ether? Ether, also spelled A-E, so usually you spell it E-T-H-E-R, but I'll spell it with an A-E-T-H-E-R, is you kind of look at ether. So it is this belief that a theoretical universal substance during the 19th century acts as a medium for transmission of electromagnetic waves, you know, light, x-rays, whatever, and that that these sound waves are transmitted by elastic media such as air. So it's basically something that you can't see. But what's interesting is that they call the internet, so the old name for the cables that they use, I mean, right now we have Wi-Fi everywhere, but they call those Ethernet cables, right? If you guys remember or not. So I think it's all interesting because ether is a spiritual word, and then ether is also the definition that I just gave you. So the spiritual meaning is a substance that allowed humans to connect to spirituality and intuition. So it's almost like they're hijacking all these like spiritual concepts and putting them into the AI world. So ether can be a spiritual concept, but then they kind of put it to describe the internet with it, or to describe like a cable that connects us to the internet or connects the computer to the internet, which it's just interesting how it happens. And then today, I also came across the definition of real because, you know, it's just so, I was talking to someone else and this person was asking, is this real? We were just talking about something completely unrelated. And I'm like, but what is really real? You know, like what is real? What is the reality? I know they want to put us into these reels, REELS, meaning the real reality, like I already mentioned in other videos, where they want to create like shorter and shorter videos for us to trap our attention span in it and to kind of have our artistic expression in those like few second long or 1 minute long videos. But real actually just means existing as a thing or occurring, in fact, not imagined or supposed. It's also not imitation or artificial, so genuine. And the way you would use it is the earring was presumably real gold. So it's something that's actually of value, right? Or something that's not a copy. That's kind of what I got from that. So I mean, if you're talking about there may be copies of you walking around, or they're trying to make copies of us because they're trying to trap our voices through these tools. You know, when you try to record a voice note somewhere on WhatsApp or Telegram or whatever, they already have all of that in their cloud somewhere. They try to record your face throughout the videos you're making, or with the camera, the front end camera on your phone, or even like your tablet or laptop, whatever you're using. So real is becoming maybe more and more rare in today's reality because they're trying to imitate not just us, but also like everything around us, maybe also the world around us, it's kind of what I got out of that conversation. I don't think the person I was talking to really understood what I was trying to get to. And it's just so funny, you know, you try to talk to people who are like, they're just not awake, you know, they're, and it's also so crazy because, you know, these scare tactics, and I think that's the danger, because there are people who are really newly waking up to all of this. And they come across all these Project Balloon Beam type of people, or people who are just really trying to fearmonger and scare and everything. And just like the person said in the conversation that I just quoted, he just ignores it at this point because it doesn't feel right. And it's not just ignoring it because it doesn't feel good. You know, like New Ages just ignore the fact that there's negative stuff out there. But with him, it kind of felt like he ignores it because he knows it doesn't get him anywhere, because it's just another distraction somehow. It's another scare tactic, and it's really meant to lower our vibration. And that's exactly how I felt about David Icke, a few years ago, as I already said in several different videos at this point. And it's a form of disinformation to confuse you even more, at least in my opinion. And so I feel that's really the danger right now for people who are really newly awakening to this. I know a lot of people are reaching out to me who I would consider maybe in that category, or people who are still really confused about everything. They're confused about angels, archangels, entities, anything around us, where it's all just AI. It's all just technology they're using. It's all just random entities that are disguised as such, and then they got a name somehow. And this is not new AI that just came about over the last decade or the last 100 years. This is AI that's been around for thousands of years, or maybe even a billion years, because time in and of itself, it's completely irrelevant. You can stretch time or you can push it together. And anyone who's experienced that, you just do certain exercises, or especially people who've kind of just had that alternative being out of your body experience, where it's like, wow, 1 hour felt like one day almost, or 1 minute feels like an entire hour, or whatever. Time is almost irrelevant in my opinion, because time can feel like the shortest thing out there, and the same time frame can feel like the longest thing out there for other people or in other circumstances. So time in and of itself, is calling it an illusion is oversimplified. It's literally like you can stretch it to your own, or you can just kind of shape it to your own making, in my opinion. And time is definitely somehow trapped also within us. So there's a lot that goes into that in and of itself. Also, the entire being able to shift diseases, like being able to shift cancer, Lyme disease, all of that. I do think we have way more power than they want us to know in regards to that. So let me just look at a few more notes. Oh yeah, how do we connect with our soul? So right now it's important to nourish your soul. I feel it's extremely important. I'm kind of lucky because I actually have a dog who gets me away from the screens and just regular life that maybe a year ago I wouldn't really have done in the way that I have to do now. Like, we have to go on a few daily walks and everything, and when we do that, I just don't really look at electronics while on it because I really want to be in the moment. But actually, my dog reminds me a lot about how it is to live naturally, because she doesn't need a phone. She doesn't look at, like, we don't really have a TV screen here, so she's not really influenced by that. And it's almost like her soul has to be nourished somehow. And how do you do that? You obviously got to play with her. You got to do certain things with her, like, I don't know, running around in a tennis court or whatever. But basically, it's important for everyone, for all beings, I feel, not just pets or humans, but every being here, to nourish your soul, to go out in nature, whatever nature looks like, even if it's just a patch of grass somewhere or somewhere in the park, and to really ground yourself, and to get away from screens, from just the entire inorganic reality that they've been building up around us for the past few decades, for sure. Like, inorganic is like the computer, the laptop, even artificial light, like the entire lighting system, how it's changing. I switched out my light bulbs recently, a few months ago, and I'm noticing a huge difference in my sleep cycle, because they have like these brighter LED lamps and everything. And I'm like, wow, this is kind of really, I felt I had a more peaceful sleep schedule before that. And I think lights definitely have to do with that. I think lights also have to do with the feng shui of your entire place, how your entire place all of a sudden feels. So there's a lot that goes into all of these concepts, but I just wanted to briefly mention them. And I hope you got something out of this video. Let me know what your thoughts are. I haven't done a whole lot of interviews with people on this channel lately. I've really not felt drawn to it. I kind of want the information to sit in its own energy as of now. I'm not saying it's not going to happen in the future or whatever. But I also had people reach out who were kind of like, they had like new information on a new age person, new age guru, and they wanted they kind of want to discuss that. I don't know, an interview setting or something like that. So I had those people reach out too. Haven't really recorded anything, but yeah, if you guys have like any ideas or things to share, to go about on, definitely let me know. And this is just a bit of a different concept than usually. And I know, like, the screen, I just constantly have to look at notes, so it's a bit distracting. I can always look at the screen or the camera, but I'm sure you guys understand. And yeah, thank you so much for everything you do. Hope to see you soon. And until then, bye guys. Enjoy your day. Have a lovely one.